Okay, let's build Pong in Scratch. It's one of the most simple and iconic games ever made. By the end of this, you'll have a fully playable 2-player game complete with scoring, movement, and collisions. Let's get started. First, the background. I kept it plain because, well, that's what Pong used to look like. Just a simple, dark-colored background with a line down the middle. To do this, I used a picture from the internet which already had the line drawn because it made putting it in the middle easier. But you can draw it by hand if you wish. Now, we should have a dark coloured background with a line through it. Now we can move on to adding the players. For the right panel, I used the button sprite. I then filled it solid and squished it to make it narrower. When doing this, make sure to center the costume in the editor or the movement might not work properly later. I also scaled it down. The smaller it is, the harder the game will be. I picked 50 for mine, but you can go smaller or larger depending on your preference. Remember, this is your game that you are building. Then I created a variable for the bat position. This only saves the vertical position, as this will be the only direction the bat should move in. This variable will be used later on when we calculate the direction the ball should bounce off the bat. I then added 3 starting blocks: when green flag clicked, when up arrow clicked, and when down arrow clicked. On green flag, I added a block to center the paddle at x240 and y0 to be in the middle of the screen to the side, and then I zeroed the bat position variable. For the movement, the up arrow click block should change y by 10 and the bat position variable by 10. And for the down arrow, I did the same, just with minus 10. You can change the values to affect the speed of the paddle. However, make sure that whatever value you use is consistent across all these blocks and the ones for the other paddle to make sure you have a fair game. I now have a paddle moving up and down the screen with the arrow keys. If your paddle isn't moving, then go back and watch this stage again to ensure your blocks look like mine. For the next paddle, we are just going to duplicate the paddle. We are then going to change the starting position to x is minus 240, but we should leave y the same at 0. Then I'm going to swap the keybinds so that this side uses different controls. I picked W and S because it's on the other side of the keyboard, so 2 people can play at the same time, just like how you can like and subscribe at the same time. You will also need a new variable for the bat's position. I named mine similar to the other variable to keep it consistent. Then you'll need to change the position variable blocks to make sure they update this variable, not the other one. I also changed the color of the sprite to have some contrast. However, you can keep yours the same if you want. I now have 2 paddles on opposite sides that can move independently. If one doesn't move or they both move together, you probably forgot to change some variables or key controls, so go back and check that. Now for the ball. This is the most complex part because it has to handle movement, bouncing, collisions, and scoring. First, for the sprite, I just spawned in the ball sprite from scratch and used the paint bucket to make it solid white. Then I created 2 variables for each player's score and made sure to deselect the bat position variables as we don't need to see these anymore. Then I added a green flag click block that sends the ball to the middle of the pitch and points it in a random direction. Then I put a forever loop in with a move steps block so it constantly travels. Inside that loop, it checks if it touches the top or bottom edge and then reverses direction so that it bounces. Then I added another block that would continuously check if it goes past the left or right side, and it would add to the player's score and put the ball back in the middle. While we are doing this, we should also add blocks to reset the score when the game is started. I also added separate logic for each side so they get served to the opposite side after each point. Finally, I made it check for a collision with the paddle and use this group of blocks to calculate the bounce angle. Here you can see the variable for the paddle position being used to calculate the bounce angle. The game should be fully working and ready to play. If the ball isn't properly bouncing, you have either missed a check or have put the wrong formula in to calculate the bounce angle. Now after you have added that, you should have a fully working game that you can play with your friends and family, or even just by yourself. You can customize the game any way you like, and if you are still struggling, please leave a comment and I'll try and respond to all of them. If you are looking for something else to build, then consider checking out one of my other Scratch tutorials.